Aye.
Trick or treat.
Okay, so that's the effect. I expect that there are a couple of LEDs there with some masks in front of them to cast the shadow for the two shapes of the mouth. And then there'll be a little chip with the audio that turns the LEDs on and off in the appropriate sequence. Don't mind the cracking noises. Nothing a little hot glue can't fix, I assume. But also, I don't think that's the end of the world with this prop. Not unless we can hack it into something even cooler. Oh my. Oh my. There's a little more to it than I expected. Okay, no surprise. This orange thing goes to the sensor in the front, and conveniently, it's got plugs. So you can unplug that. It doesn't seem to have any polarity. It says CDS, which is a common type of light sensor, so there shouldn't be any polarity. As you expect, it's just a plastic hollow orange pumpkin. Okay, that's the speaker. And you see the speaker is offset. There's actually a little box there. They're trying to get some resonance. Oh, is that a microphone? What's this text next to it say? That's just FCC stuff. I think this little hole might be a microphone as a second way to sense sound that somebody needs. It's interesting. Is there any markings here? This connector is labeled BZ. That's that one. Green one is SPK. That's definitely speaker. Okay. Our switch comes in on these light gray wires. And our power comes in on the red and black. And 1, 2, 3, these are the three LEDs. I assume they're LEDs. We'll get there. Okay. Basically the same thread size, but a shorter screw. Okay. Let's see if we can pull this in a little bit. Zoom. That's probably about as close as I can get. Keep focus. Decent little board. They did a really nice job figuring out how to add connectors to all these and not just solder everything directly to the board. I'm rather impressed by that. Okay, so we have our cutout for the eyes, which is basically static. We have one mouth position and another mouth position. This is the wider open one. And as I noted, there's a bit of a bend here. There's also a bit of a bend. I don't know if that's accidental or intentional, but the upper part of the wider mouth bends in. And then I think what I'm seeing in there, that orangish square, is probably just an LED. And it's small enough that it's a point source, and they're just projecting the shadow. And I'm guessing there are three identical little boards in there. But we can open it up and take a look. The box is divided into compartments, so the light from one LED doesn't shine through the others. And those are just crazy simple little LED boards. Like, why even do a board there, except I guess... And why does it have to be so big? I see one LED and one resistor on each one. It's pretty much exactly what you would expect. I have a bunch of notes I'll paste below of all the measurements and things I made. I'm going to reassemble this without the shadow mask, so you can see how the lights go. And once it's assembled, I also want to test the try me function. One thing I discovered, I think earlier I pointed over here, that's not the power switch, that's the connector to the try me. On this side is the power switch, and it's a double throw switch, but it's actually only wired up as one pole and one throw, so it's either off or sensor. So am I reading that right? Yes. Off or sensor. Notice this doesn't actually cut into either the black or red from the battery pack, so this isn't truly a power switch. My guess is, since both wires just go to the board, it's a signal that the MCU watches to know whether or not it should start paying attention to the sensors. And if it doesn't, then I bet the try me switch, even if it's in the off position, that the try me switch would still work. I think that's gonna go here. And if I blow it up, I blow it up. So the only unpopulated one is the photo sensor. Now, on the bottom is the little connector for the try me button. I have a stash of try me buttons that I have saved from props of days gone by. Okay, so with the switch in the off position and the batteries in, the try me button. Hey! Okay, right away I see a problem, is that the middle one is not lit up, so I'm guessing the middle one is not connected to the right spot. I think I know what happened. I think I was supposed to run it out the other side of this board. Now I think we're in business. And as we pull away, it gets bigger and dimmer, but it also gets out of focus. Also notice the alignment there between the two mouths is wrong at different distances. You see, as the difference between the positions between the mouth and the eyes varies. Okay, this is the original shadow mask. I have 3D printed one with a very simple face, just as a proof of concept. I know this is not more interesting than the one that's there. I just wanted to see if I could replace it. I made mine the actual dimensions of the outside of the box. Remember, this one was a little larger and had a little curvature and stuff in it. I don't know how important that is. And I was sort of guessing at the heights of these features. I essentially figured out the heights of these. I think it's from the bottom of the box. That one's about 35 millimeters. That one's about 75 millimeters. And that one's about 95 millimeters up. So I kind of use those as my reference points for these things. These are basically two slightly different versions of the same mouth. Again, this is just a proof of concept. Here we go. Wow, those this orange filament is much more translucent than I expected. So let's pop it into our pumpkin here. Just for approximateness. Hey, look at that. Okay, so learning number one, I'm gonna need to figure out how to align the mouths better, because it's basically just going down a lot. I think I can do some geometry to figure that out. I have made a different face mask, and same eyes, it doesn't matter. And I made just a thin line for the neutral mouth, and then I made a bunch of narrower lines, 4 millimeters apart each, and I marked the one I'm using as a reference with the circles next to it. And so my idea is to put this in the pumpkin and project and see if I can use this scale to measure the offset to this mouth. So, what I do is my index finger is on the neutral line, and the reference line is the one with the circles. So that's the reference line, and each line above the reference line in the shadow mask is 4 millimeters high. So I got 4, 8, and then maybe 9 to get those to line up. The absolute values aren't important. What we're trying to do is figure out the relative positions. So I think 9 is going to do really well. I used this. I know these lines are 4 millimeters apart on the mask, so I used it to estimate how far I needed to adjust from this reference point to make it match the reference mouth while it was projecting inside the pumpkin. And the answer to that looked like 9 millimeters, because each of these lines is 4 millimeters apart, and it was just beyond the 8th line. So I've made a new mask that we're going to put on right now. These two mouths are identical, but I have now used that calibration offset to hopefully get them aligned correctly. So as it talks, in this case, we should see very little mouth movement. Pay no attention to the speaker cable coming out the back. All right. So let's put in our try me. And we will lower the lights so we can see how well this lines up. Now, as a reminder, if I got this right, the two mouth positions should be virtually identical. Let's find out. It's pretty good. It's not great, and it's not perfect, but you see the lower mouth and the upper mouth are pretty close to each other. So I'm gonna say that is the right calibration amount. Okay, after watching the calibration face, I designed a slightly more interesting face. I gave him a lot of teeth, and this is just kind of be the final proof that we could change the faces of these props. A 3D printer is just one way you could do it. You could probably just use a piece of cardstock if you were good with a knife and cut the templates you need for the shadow mask. You could design it in another program and use something like a Cricut cutter to cut it out. But let's see how well this one works. Here goes nothing. Hey. Okay, so maybe not the most artistic and creative pumpkin face anyone has ever made,